What's the point of learning if it doesn't move the business forward? Most learning efforts fail short of this goal. Welcome to GydeBites. I'm Prasanna Vaidya, your host. Today we have Dr. Regis Chasse, partner and executive director at Global Leadership Development Practice at Headrick and Struggles. He's going to help us decode how to design learning that's not just informative but transformative for the business. He has over 30 years of experience in L&D. Dr. Regis designs innovative learning programs that that helps organizations excel in a rapidly evolving world. He brings deep expertise in adult learning, learning technologies, and data to drive measurable impact. Regis, welcome to GydeBites.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad so you could take some time out of your busy schedule, and we'll straight away jump in. So we'll start talking a little bit about how or why many learning programs fail to show or struggle to show business value, right? Because there are a lot of learning programs that takes place, but at the end of the day, there is a common complaint or common sort of what you can say, common thread that says that okay, we did this, but there is no business value. So why that happens?
Yeah. So actually, I would like to reframe that question. It's less about a learning program and more about the learning function. So it's really about the function having the competencies to develop measurement approach that allows to demonstrate the effectiveness and the business impact of learning programs. So it's not about the program per se, but it's more about the competencies that the learning function has within it. So then if we reframe that question that way, why do many learning functions struggle to show business value? Then for a learning professional, it's not natural to think in terms of business, to have enough business acumen to interact with business stakeholders so that we engage in conversations upfront with senior business stakeholders to really understand what they expect from these programs and how we can measure the impact of program. The measurement aspect is essential to show the business value, right? So there are many researchers and L&D professionals who have developed approaches to demonstrate and to measure the business impact of learning programs. But first and foremost, it is a competency that learning functions have to develop for themselves.
Yeah, and you brought a very valid point. The learning professionals are not sort of naturally tuned to talk in business terms. They don't know what is driving these kind of programs from the very first principles. And you're very right in saying that they have to be talking to leadership about what's the measure that they are seeking from before starting the functions or programs. So I just want to double click a little bit on this. So what sort of alignment you see between these L&D professionals, leaders, and business to look like? So how does that alignment work?
Yeah. And I want to complement what you just summarized by saying learning professionals maybe don't think that way because they think about the learners. They think about, and they care about the learners. They want to bring value to the learner first.
Right.
Rather than the business first. And I think that's the angle. We can explain it also that way. How does alignment between learning and business happen? I think that happens really whenever you want to start a new initiative. When in the business, you want to invest into a new product, a new partnership, some type of innovation initiative, you do a business case, right? You do a business case just to show what is the expected value that you expect out of this venture. How will you go about making it happen? What is the cost of implementing this program? And then there is the cost benefit analysis. So is the cost worth the benefits? Well, for learning, it's exactly the same. You can develop a business case for any learning initiative, whether that's a small program or a larger program. And developing that business case requires to to do it with the business. So if I develop this program on project management for our employees, what is the expected impact that you want to have on the business? Well, I want to have a more predictable and rigorous way to manage projects so that we deliver more on budget and more on time. And that has a cost that, maybe the financial function can estimate.
Mhm.
So having that upfront conversation with the business, what are the key metrics that we want to measure in this example of project management? Let's take, well, we count the number of projects that are on budget and delivered on time. This is the metric that we want to influence in the business. Okay, great. So once we do the training, when do you expect this to impact the business? When do you expect those metrics to be impacted? Well, for those project managers, it may take, 2 or 3 months to get used to and apply that knowledge. So maybe we will measure that 3 months after the program is over, and see if there is a really impact on the business. Okay, great. So now we have identified what metric we want to measure, how we will measure it, meaning the instrument
Mhm.
to measure it, and when we will measure it. So if you have that upfront conversation with a business, that becomes much easier than to understand what you are aiming for.
Yeah.
And in turn, also, you can inject that into the design of the program, meaning explaining to the learners through the project management course that this is what is expected of a project manager, and this is what the business expects of a project manager. And those are the key elements that will be measured against your performance.
Yeah.
So that impacts also the design of the learning experience. There are additional early indicators also that you can capture. So yes, ultimately, we will measure the number of projects that are on budget and on time versus those that are not. But maybe there are early indicators. Are the learners changing their behaviors? Do we have feedback from people around them, from their manager, for instance, on yes, they are trying to apply the skills, or no, they don't change anything. So that we can know right away, right when they are back in the field, the day after the training is over, then we can see if the learners try to apply the skills. That's an early indicator. We don't have to wait 3 months to see if we have the outcome. But if the learner doesn't change their behavior, most likely the business result will not be delivered, right? And in order to change their behavior, those learners have to be engaged during the program. They have to be in tune with what is learned and accept to take action on what they have learned. So those are also other early engagement, early indicators for the learner. So, and you can course correct based on that. If you see that, for instance, my session on earned value management didn't really land with the learners, there was a lack of engagement. Right? The people didn't seem interested. Actually, I received a feedback in the corridor that they really didn't understand, and I didn't explain it the way I should have. Then I can course correct, right? Then I course correct, and maybe that will help land the message better. So those early indicators are very useful to make sure that we are aiming in the right direction, which is the business impact. Right. At the tail end, of course, once you have executed the program, you have to deliver on the promise that you made to the business, right? So you have to ask for those metrics to the business, because it's not your metrics as a learning function. It's the business metrics, right? You need to ask for those metrics and have a very objective view of the work. This is not to show that your program is successful. This is to demonstrate whether or not there is an impact. And if there is no impact, how can we improve the program? It is a mindset of continuous improvement. That's why you want to measure the impact. The business still wants to have those projects on time and on budget, right? And the solution is likely to train people, but maybe we don't do it the most effective way. So those metrics will help us demonstrate whether we have the real impact. And those early indicators that I mentioned earlier, they will help you identify why it's not working. Are you affecting the behaviors? Is the message landing? Where is it not landing? Which module really didn't work? And then you can iterate and then do that measurement approach. This is a very scientific way to look at a learning program and delivering the expected business impact.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that was awesome. That was awesome, Regis. It makes sense, right? Because you talk to business to identify the metrics that you want to measure. Then how do you measure it? When do you measure it? And then you course correct on the learner side. Uh, we talked about course correction on the learners or the project managers in this your examples. How do we course correct on the business side? Because uh, the business needs are changing. So how do we make sure that L&D and the learning functions or programs are staying connected to the changing business needs? How do we do that part of the, how do we play that part of the game?
Yeah, so that's a very good point. So we were very, in our conversation so far, we are very granular at the very specific capability or competency that we want, or performance that we want to improve within the business. That comes from dialogue with the business.
Yeah.
That's when you do the needs analysis. There is on one side the needs of the employees, right? When you do a need analysis, there is a bottom up, which is the need of the employees, but there is also a top down, which is the need of the business unit.
Yep.
And executive leadership. So that, and then there is prioritization. With all those needs, we group them together and we decide how to invest. That process needs to take place with the business at the table so that we remain in sync with the business, with the changing environment. I mean, things are going so fast now, right? In the market, in any industry, things are changing so fast. So we need to be in tune absolutely with the business. And that's what I call learning governance, where really is simply to establish a mini committee or a committee for the learning function with some business stakeholders, and yes, the head of HR or human resources or head of talent can be part of this, but we want also the business. We want also some business unit leaders that really give us the tone of the business and what are those burning platforms, what are those top priorities, and also that gives us as a learning function a lot more legitimacy when we.
Is it STICO?
I'm sorry.
Is it like a STICO, steering committee?
Yeah. It's a learning function steering committee. Yes, but it's a big name for a set of 5 to 8 people, let's say, that allow you to to identify what are those burning platforms that the business has, how learning can help, if learning can help, how it can help, and prioritize. You know, remember you have that needs analysis coming from the top, from the business units, from the bottom. How do we prioritize all that? So where I was going was prioritizing these investments with the business gives you a lot more legitimacy and assurance that you are going the right direction and in the direction of the business. So those interactions with the business, maybe you do that quarterly or semi-annually. And when I was running a corporate university, I had those meetings twice a year with CEOs of business units to make sure that we were really on top of their worries, of their capability needs, and that they were giving me license to spend, so much of the budget on this initiative and so much of the budget on this initiative.
Yeah, makes sense. And what do you say about the data? Where does the data play a role in all of this? Because there are a lot of tools. There is a lot of things that are getting logged in every system. So how data plays a role in all of this for learning to stay relevant to the business?
Yeah. So data is what gives you objective fact about change of behaviors, about being able to meet the business expectations, about the actual business metrics, the way it is measured. I think what's most important into the data supporting a measurement approach there is a set of data that belongs to the learning function.
Yeah.
For instance, for the satisfaction rating of learners, it is a good indicator. It is a good indicator for the learning function, as I mentioned, as an early indicator of engagement and what doesn't land with the learner and how we can improve the sessions. So that is useful data for the learning functions, and the learning functions gathers that data. But try to talk to the business about the satisfaction of learners. But they will not look at it very seriously, and they might even argue, how do you measure this data? This is your data, etc. So what's more important is that you link business data to your measurement approach. The data that the business uses on a daily basis and measures on a daily basis. That's that business data that allows you to build the credibility with the business. And also your intent is to affect the business impact, right? So that's to affect those data points that the business cares about. So I like to delineate. So there's a set of data that is useful for us as a learning function. And that's very important to gather those end of program surveys, because this way you know where it's working, where it's not working, and all that. But what's more important is really also to understand the effect that the learners will have on the business, and therefore on the business data. And when you go back to the business instead of that satisfaction rating, and you talk to them about, okay, so before the program, we have the baseline. Before the program, we had 50% of the projects that were above budget and 33% that were not delivered on time. After this program, 3 months after this program, we are at around 60% now on budget, and 25% are on time. So we are doing better on budget, but we are not doing better on delivery on time. Why is that? So let's look at that. Maybe we can improve and stress a bit more the time management dimension of the course. And that's why I was telling you to have that very honest conversation with the business about continuous improvement. This is not about showing that we were right. This is about continuously improving our learning solutions so that they are becoming more effective.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, one part of the data is about proving that it is working, but the other part of the data, as you said, that it is about improving continuously, that, hey, we have not met this, how do we do this, and so on. Yeah, you
Exactly.
put it exactly right in that case. Dr. Regis, can you share an example where learning sort of impacted the business results? I know we have been talking about project management as an example till now, but do you have any other example, maybe a real world story to share about how learning impacted the business results?
Yeah. So just to finish on that example of project management, actually, I used to work for Capgemini. I was part of the management team of the Capgemini University. Project management is what we deliver to our clients, external clients, right? So project management is super important because this is where you make the margin, you create the trust relationship with the client, and you get repeat business or not if you have not delivered on time and above client expectations. And we used to call that OTAs, on time and above client expectations, OTAs. So just to finish on that example, that was a very successful example of we have iterated that training over the years and improved on the value that we deliver to the business and the rigor with which we can deliver OTAs on time above client expectations.
Okay.
The other areas that I've experienced with, one was around sales acceleration. So actually, to measure the impact of sales training is so easy, right? Because you have a direct impact on the sales, on the sales funnel, eventually on the sales and ultimately the revenue. So that's an area that for those learning functions that are starting their venture into measuring business impact, sales department is usually the area that is a bit easier because you are closer to the business result. The individual behavior that changes will bring it away. So sales acceleration is a good example. But the example I want to dig a bit deeper on is leadership development. Leadership development is, that's easy to say. Well, yeah, let's measure the business impact of project management. Project management is about budgets and deliverables, and it's hard stuff, right? It's easy. It's easier. Sales. I mean, sales makes sense. It's real money, and we have a client or we don't have a client. Leadership development. Can we measure the impact of the business impact of leadership development? Of course we can. Of course we can. Again, it's all about engaging with the right stakeholders in the business. But for example, when we talk about developing the pipeline of future leaders within our organization, when we talk about high potential leaders that the HR organization, invests a lot in identifying within the organization. Well, how can we measure the impact that we have? Well, so let's say that we develop for this population of high potential leaders. Let's say that we develop a leadership development program. What do we expect out of this leadership development program? Well, first and foremost, we want to retain those high potential leaders. We want to make sure that they are there, a year from now, because we believe in them and they will be our future leaders. 2, we want them to expand gradually their responsibilities. Maybe they will be promoted, or maybe they have additional project that they can manage, or maybe a larger team. So those are 3 metrics that I just mentioned that the business measures. Retention, you compare the retention of the leaders that went through your program against the average population, and then you see if collectively with the talent management processes and interventions that they have, and your leadership program is part of that collection of intervention, collectively, we are able or not to retain better high potential leaders. And if not, then what additional interventions, what additional support can we provide those future leaders to stay within our organization and to accept more responsibilities? The other example I want to give is, again, on leadership development. Here I talked about mid-level leaders that are identified as high potential. But for instance, for very senior leaders, for the C-suite successors, C-suite in an organization, you have 5 to 10 of them, 12 maybe, and you want to have a succession plan for every single one of them because they manage all the different functions of the organization. So we want to prepare a population of leaders to be able to step up to be the next C-suite leader. And you know what? I don't know the person, but I know that there will be, that's in the group of those 3 people. One of those 3, will most likely be the right one. And then for each function, you can frame that, that's part of the succession planning. And then we can do a leadership program that helps us as an organization, helps those leaders develop additional leadership skills that will make them more ready to take on the next C-suite appointment. And that can be linked very tightly to the talent review, all those key critical roles within organizations, and all those successors, they go through what we call a talent review process. And during that talent review process, so how ready is that person to take on the C-suite position? Is it a year? Is it 3 years from now? Or is it, no, they would not get ready. So you have a process, and so that's a panel basically of business leaders that provide testimonial and provide their judgment of the situation. And out of that talent review, you can have, actually, out of all the pipeline of successors, I have only 30% that are ready, versus after the program was executed for a couple of years, well, now we are closer to 50% of them are ready to be successors. So that's another way to embed, for a topic that is quite complex and soft in nature, leadership development. This is the way you can demonstrate the business impact using, again, the data of the business and the processes of the business.
Yeah, that was awesome, Regis, because leadership development is, by the sound of it, everyone thinks it's very subjective. You cannot measure it, but if you sort of put it in such a way or find such a metrics that, okay, can I retain them? Am I able to retain them? Are they sort of improving on their responsibilities and team and so on? That becomes very objective to measure, and we can do that. So thank you so much for sharing this. Before we wrap up, we always ask our guests for one practical takeaway. So what's the one piece of advice you would like to give to our listeners?
My only maybe word of wisdom, if I may say so, will be talk to the business. Talk to the business upfront of your next leadership program before you design it. What do they expect out of that program? How would they measure the success of that program? And then starting that conversation with the business will unlock and elevate really the role of the learning function.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Regis, for sharing all these valuable insights with us. I'm glad you could take some time out of your busy schedule.
Thank you very much.
All right. So, and to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to GydeBites. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your network. Subscribe to GydeBites. Don't forget that. And until next time, this is Prasanna. I'm signing off. Thank you.